Good morning, everyone. I wanted to make a brief intro to the recording you're about to hear that I'm titling Truth Bomb. Just to help you understand that it's going to be a little bit of a dive into the dark side. There's not going to be very much talk about the tools that are at our disposal to awaken ourselves. There's not going to be any talk about actual methodologies of self-awakening, which I normally get into. So I just want to give you a little bit of a forewarning that this recording I'm talking about is kind of a deeper dive into the dark side. And just to be seeing it as that, it's more like an expose, I guess is what they call it, of what lies beneath the surface of things in this current hour on this planet. So, just be forewarned that in this video, it does not go into methodologies of self-correction. And the love and the service and the light. It talks about a lot of those things, but I really wanted to shine a light upon in this recording because of an experience I had this morning for myself of some of the darkness. I really wanted to convey a certain understanding of the condition that this planet faces right now. And just to be taken as that. It's more like a documentary of what's going on, more than my normal distillation of beneficial mindsets that we can utilize for our awakening process. All right, with that being said, here we go. Good morning, servants of the light. I decided to get up. It's 5:30 in the morning where I am, and make this recording because originally I had the impetus to make a recording about how to be safe for individuals who decide to use psychedelics, who may not be well versed in the light and just what that means, who may not be well versed in the understanding of the frequency of life, and that there are an enormous amount of opposition, we'll say. There's an enormous amount of oppositional vibration existing in the frequency of this planet. So instead of making a video about that and making a video about explaining how to survive a bad trip and what a bad trip actually is, I will make a video about that. But because it's so fresh in my consciousness right now, and the fact that I'm still peaking, and there's an importance in that because anybody who knows about psychedelics and how they act on the mind and the consciousness is that it allows you to see and make connections with reality that are quite well obstructed and dulled from the average consciousness, from the average function of humanity. They literally have no idea of the amount of oppression upon their consciousness that exists. So that's what I'm going to make this video about. And I'm going to call it Truth Bomb. And I'm going to dive into some pretty heavy stuff. So that's just a forewarning, okay? Because I have an inclination this morning to try to instill a fraction of understanding upon the average individuals that may come across this recording about the actual condition that we are in from a spiritual standpoint. And this has relevance on all aspects of what we call normal waking consciousness, meaning our business life, our family life, the politics of the world. It has every connection with that. But those are the effects of a cause. And what I want to talk about today is the causation of things. And I'm calling this Truth Bomb for a reason. Right, so this morning, upon partaking in my standard communion when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I took a large dose of my favorite psychedelic, being psilocybin, which I do very frequently. And in conjunction with this, I want to say that I have been serving the light, quote unquote, serving the light, since I was a teenager. All right. And I'm just sharing that without going into any further explanation to say that I am well versed in the amount of bullshit that is out there. Or how should I say this? Maybe I shouldn't even say anything. Maybe I should just say there's a lot of bullshit out there. It comes in many faces. It's very distracting. Okay. The only way to ever see through the bullshit is either with immense focus and training of one's free will, an immense concentration, immense fortitude of faculties that mankind barely know exist. These are the things that spiritual masters, or what I'm going to call spiritual masters of all sorts, had to do to break through when they did it without psychedelics. It is safer that way. It is definitely safer that way. I'm going to say that very clearly. The path of purity is immeasurably safer than the path of psychedelics. But those who choose to do psychedelics have to understand it is not a weak man's game. It is not a weak individual's game. Because there are times when you will be faced with a fragment of what's really going on. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And that's why I'm calling this Truth Bomb. I found myself pinned. If anybody's ever watched MMA, most people have at least seen MMA, mixed martial arts. Okay? There's a lot of ferocity of the human spirit embodied in that sport. I wouldn't say it's really being utilized in the best manner, beating each other senseless. But I want to use this as an example, is that since I said earlier that I have been a student of the light and a servant of the light since I was a teenager, I've been around the block a few times. I know bullshit when bullshit is presented to me. I know how to defend myself from what I'll call, or what is known as the psychic realm. Anybody who makes progress in the light will be faced with it numerous times as they march back and become a higher servant of the light. It is something everyone will have to face. The darkness, the frequency of darkness is an absolute beast of a foe. But I'm going to go deeper in explanation of this. But my point is this. If people who understand what mixed martial art is, okay, what I want to explain is this morning, taking my, it was a pretty big dose of psychedelics, but half as much as I've maybe ever done in my largest amount, okay? So let's just say it's well into the heroic dosage realm. So every once in a while, though, I would say maybe 1 in 20 times of going to heroic levels, you may find yourself embattled or in a situation where you are pinned to the mat in an MMA octagon ring, okay? That's the best example I have to share this with, because that's what it feels like. And that's what it felt like to me this morning. That the ferocity of this overwhelming psychic force pins me to the mat with like an arm, like a forearm against my throat, okay? I'm just trying to give you a visualization of how immense the pressure is. It feels like you're suffocating. It happens so fast that even someone like myself, who is well versed in how to defend myself, and that these things exist, and then this is what people like Jesus and all the individuals who have had to come to this world and try to free mankind out of their darkness have had to face. When you get a taste, just a fraction of a taste of the ferocity of the darkness that exists on this planet in the psychic realm, I mean, it is minuscule to what is out there, to what envelops this entire planet at this moment, okay? And that is the whole purpose of me making this recording that I'm calling Truth Bomb, is to try to explain how immense the darkness and the density of the frequency that exists on this planet right now. That is completely, it is so almost completely enveloping the human consciousness of the average individual that they are so asleep, it puts them to sleep almost so completely that they have no idea that it exists. And so the only way, I'm going to start this off by sharing how I freed myself from this situation this morning. Because like I said, I've been around the block a few times. This is the same psychic oppression that destroys the minds of those in the grips of psychic events like schizophrenia and other things. This psychic phenomena is so intense, it rips people's consciousness apart. Okay? Anybody who goes deep into the use of psychedelics will find themselves face to face with this at some point. It is a fact of life. You will have a bad trip, and it will be a psychic phenomenal experience that feels like it can rip you apart. But what you're actually seeing there is a fragment of truth of what's underlying the entire human consciousness at this time on the planet. You are seeing a minuscule effect of the underlying cause that envelops this entire planet and everyone who embodies upon it at this time. And I want to just say that my tool of freeing myself this morning from this psychic phenomenon was using this very simple statement. Show me the motherfucking light. I'm going to repeat that. Show me the motherfucking light. That statement will shatter any psychic phenomena going on in your being. If you know what you're doing. You don't even have to say those words out loud. Because I was literally laying next to my wife. My wife is always asleep when I'm going through my most intense psychedelic trips. All right? It's just the fact of the way it is. Because these morning hours are amazing for using psychedelics. I've talked about this in so many videos. So she has no idea what I'm doing or facing next to her sometimes. But this is just the beginning of this recording, so I'm going to go deep into what is going on behind the scenes of all this. But the point is, I freed myself from this psychic bad trip this morning using that statement, and anybody can do the same. Because there's one thing the psychic phenomena cannot do, is show you the fucking light. It cannot do it. And you will find your way out of a bad trip in a matter of seconds if you employ that tactic. For me, number one, you have to understand everything I say about these things has zero ego in it. Even though I'm going to have to talk about things with a certain amount of conviction and certainty, and it may seem self-aggrandizing, I have no other way to try to tell you this, but it has nothing to do with ego. Absolutely nothing. The humility that is required to serve the light at a certain capacity has to be at a pretty high level. Let's just say that. To move forward in the light, you have to humble yourself so completely. It is a prerequisite to serving the light, to awakening. A prerequisite is humbling yourself. Because everything we do to serve the light is borrowed consciousness. None of it is original. None of it has been forged with our own two hands or our own creative skills. It is all borrowed understanding. It is all borrowed knowledge. It is all borrowed wisdom. It is a borrowed tool. It was forged by those who have gone well before us. So my point in saying all this is anybody who talks about the light will have a certain conviction. They have a way of speaking in a manner that has to engender an amount of certainty. It comes with the territory. When you serve the light, you do not waver. All these things go hand in hand. Okay? That's how individuals like Jesus came and said the things they said to help free mankind, because they were speaking from a place of certainty and absolute humility to the grandness that they were attempting to represent and convey to the humans that were present in front of them at the time. Let's think about the Sermon on the Mount, when there was thousands of people listening to Jesus explain to them, try to explain to them certain principles they could employ to free themselves, to free their consciousness from the psychic enslavement that envelops the planet. All right, so I don't want to go too far down that tangent, but I want to explain something, is that serving the light is no joke. You have to be a fucking warrior when you do it, because you will be faced with a adversary that is, at this juncture in time on this planet, is absolutely immense. And the more an individual raises themselves in frequency in the service of the light, they will find themselves faced with a ever greater magnitude of responsibility to use the light, but they will also be faced with an ever increasing, it's like your foe. It's like if you were a boxer or a mixed martial artist in the MMA, as you work yourself up to the champion belt, you will face greater and greater foes, okay? Well, I'm finding that this is actually the case in real life. That we are, as a person serves the light, they will find themselves facing an opposition of psychic frequency that they will have to master to further progress. And like I said, this has nothing to do with ego. It is the way it is. It makes sense the more I think about it, because if a person has the skill set, they will be given more cleaning to do for the entire planet. It's perfectly logical. A servant of the light will be given, who has the tools. Life knows the tools that a servant of the light has and will employ. It knows everything about us. It knows what we can handle. So anything that comes that we face in life, whether it be on the surface bullshit of life, whether family and just, standard living, running your career, I call that the bullshit of life, because there is an entire realm under the surface that is not visible, that is the realm of causation, that is immeasurably more powerful, immeasurably more important to understand than the surface level phenomena that most of mankind are dealing with. And they're barely dealing with that. They're barely dealing with the surface level phenomena. But that is because most of humanity's life on this planet is like being in an MMA fight with the opponent's forearm against your throat while you're lying on the mat, half conscious. That is the condition of most of humanity, and they know it not. Now, you may think this is a pretty dark subject, all right? You may think, Matt, you're just tripping. You're going a little deep and dark. Well, I'm going to show the dark. I'm going to explain. I want to explain something, because in the darkness is using borrowed energy, all right? It's just misuse. It's just misqualified creation. That's all it is. It's an illusion. But what I want to convey in this video I've titled Truth Bomb is to explain something, is that mankind has no idea of how asleep at the wheel it is. This planet is literally barely recovering. All right, I want to explain that. We are barely recovering from being wiped out from the face of existence. And you're going to ask me, what the hell are you talking about? I've intimated this many times in my previous videos about just exactly what Jesus did for this planet. And you've heard me talk about this before. I'm starting to get choked up as I even think of his name in correlation. If you can hear me in this recording, struggling to compose myself, I am struggling to compose myself, all right? If the video is on, you would see me struggling to compose myself. I'm struggling to compose myself because of the immensity, the fucking outpouring of the fucking immensity of the love. I'm going to persevere, but the moment you have no idea of the immensity of the outpouring from someone like Jesus that can still pour into somebody who is about to talk about what they did for this fucking planet. Oh, fucking hey. I am barely worthy to speak of these things, okay? Oh, fuck. I'm fucking barely worthy to... I am barely worthy to convey the magnitude of what Jesus did for humanity. But I'm going to fight through it and speak these words. It is so overwhelming, the outpouring from him. Fucking A. That's probably the most intense I've ever felt it in my life. Oh, fucking Jesus, I love you. I love you with all my heart, but I am going to speak these words. Oh my God. Mankind just has no idea what he did. We literally would not be here right now if it wasn't for him. I want to explain something real quick. You know that thing is the asteroid belt in our solar system? That used to be a planet. I'm going to have to walk outside because the family's getting up and they can't hear me talk about these things in this mindset. My wife just doesn't understand, but Mankind doesn't even understand that this planet was virtually dissolved, and they owe everything to Jesus for even taking a breath at this very moment. All right, this is the truth bomb. Because now I'm going to get very real on this recording. If you didn't think I was being real already, I'm going to get very real. This planet came to like the human hair, to the thickness of a human hair, from being completely dissolved, and all of us upon it would be completely dissolved, because, as I've said before, this is the lowest classroom available. This is the lowest classroom available. I'm going to get in the car so I can speak with conviction without disturbing the neighbors. Since I've composed myself from that outpouring of love and understanding, you have no idea. I mean, you heard it in my voice. It's so immeasurable. But I'm pulled back together now. And I'm going to explain just what Jesus did for this planet. And this has nothing to do with the Christian religion that has usurped what he taught, number one. And number two, they have no idea what he actually did for this planet. So the frequency of this planet is so dark and so dismal that it nearly was dissolved, because there was virtually no possibility of redemption. Okay, just understand the level of frequency we're talking about, of how destructive that would have to be. That the servants of the light did not think there was any redemption left of this planet. And that means every one of us on it, because this is our classroom. We have failed in other classrooms to end up here, number one. Or, number two, we embodied here and became enmeshed in the darkness of consciousness that is manifest on this planet. It's one of those two things. This is the classroom we have relegated to because of our misuse of free will and the misuse of energy. We are fucking gods in embryo. And these classrooms pervade the entire cosmos. We are minuscule. We are nothing. And yet we are everything, because we are a fractal of the original concept of perfection. And when we chose to take on the responsibility of becoming a custodian of free will, we took upon ourselves the most powerful responsibility that is known to the entire cosmos. There's not words to even express how grand it is. It's just kind of laughable. When an individual has actually allowed themselves to explore the immensity of what's out there, it is fucking laughable how we do not have any words to convey the magnitude of what we are and what this universe is doing and its function and just how big it is. It's impossible to convey. But what I can convey is how absolutely minuscule we are. Our existence is inconsequential to the perpetuation of the universe. It's inconsequential. And yet, the amount of love that is still present in individuals who make an attempt to redeem us from the very chopping block, from the guillotine coming down upon this planet and upon our individualized consciousness as a whole. The amount of love it took for an individual like Jesus to re-embody and clean up enough of our bullshit on this planet to barely tip the scales and remove our head from the guillotine. How does anybody convey that? How do you even begin to talk about this reality that mankind knows virtually nothing about? But the truth bomb I want to further convey, we have just barely removed our heads from the guillotine, but we are still shackled. Imagine, we are still in the hands of the executioner. We have just pulled our necks out of the guillotine. That is what Jesus did for us. He took our heads off the chopping block, and he did this by cleaning up a certain portion, a minuscule portion of the misused frequency that exists on this planet. And by saying minuscule, I am in no way taking away from the immensity of what he did. But what I want to convey is, people need to understand that this little period of 6,000 years of written history is like a grain of sand on the beach of what has taken place upon this planet already. We have 8 billion life streams here right now. There have been billions and billions and countless billions of other life streams on this planet before us. And we have re-embodied ourselves here, hundreds and maybe thousands of lifetimes in this classroom. And what I'm trying to convey is that this is the end of the line of classrooms. It is the place where individualized consciousness of God, those individualized consciousnesses of God must be in a classroom. This is our classroom. This is the juvenile hall. This is the end of the road. And we have been here, and all of mankind that has embodied here has been here, misusing their free will for billions of years. And that vibration saturates this planet. Think about that. It saturates this planet. This is the cause of the wars. This is the cause of the upheaval on the planet, in volcanoes and earthquakes and all destructive natural action. This is the force of nature throwing mankind's misused energy back in their face because it is allowed to do that. This planet is an absolute cesspool, and we had every right to be dissolved. But the cleaning that Jesus did changed that. But what I want to impress upon you is that cleaning barely made a scratch in the amount of darkness that is still on this planet. And my meeting some of this darkness face to face today is what really brought this whole truth bomb video to light, because the amount of darkness still here is absolutely suffocating. We are a long ways away from realizing any kind of golden age, as some think it. Some people talk about a golden age like it's around the corner. I will never discourage people from holding the picture, because that's how those things get manifest again, is holding the picture of a golden age and a higher frequency of life manifesting on this planet. That's how it happens. I want to impress upon individuals just absolutely how immense is the darkness that is still here on this planet, that still psychically manipulates and holds mankind asleep, because it can strike an individual like myself with such ferocity that it just is absolutely astounding. But at those moments of it striking, and you get to see it for what it is, that's one of the things about the light. When an individual has anchored themselves in the light, they can look at the darkness straight in the face and not be hypnotized. They can look the darkness straight and look straight through the darkness and not fall prey to its allure, to its distractions. The darkness is so completely enmeshed into the fabric of this planet. It pervades everything. It is like a 1,000-armed or 1,000-tentacled beast that literally lashes and weaves its way into the fabric of human consciousness in so many different facets. This is, it's so hard to talk about this stuff, but because most of mankind, when they hear me talk about this stuff, they'll think I'm probably crazy. But they just do not know what they're dealing with on this planet. If mankind could understand that they are little gods, right? They don't even understand what that means to have free will. The magnitude of that responsibility, and just how far it has been misused on this planet. It has created a consciousness of such depravity on this planet that it is almost inescapable. The depravity and the wrong use of the free will has reached such a state is almost inescapable. Just think about that. That there is almost no way that a child of God can find their way out of the mess we have made for ourselves on this planet. Because that is part of the power of free will. Free will implies you can use your creative power in any way which you want. In essence, we are given these classrooms to figure that out in. This is where we sink or swim. We either become a productive member of the club or we're excommunicated. It's just like that. You either learn that the consciousness of perfection is worth serving, or you're dissolved. That's the essence of it. Life doesn't even care, because you have to remember, we are nothing. There is countless classrooms, countless individuals, just like ourselves, in their classrooms, all through the universe, individualized fractals of God attempting to graduate attempting to graduate by coming to the understanding that serving the light is a greater choice than falling to the depths of despair. That's really what it comes down to. But the one problem is that the illusion, see, all the misuse of free will is just a veil. It's an illusion, but it can become so convincing, so entirely convincing, and so intertwined with the human consciousness that they can't even separate the threads of the fabric. It becomes virtually indistinguishable. The unreality becomes indistinguishable from reality. That's what has happened on this planet. That is the condition that mankind is slowly extricating themselves out of. And I'm sorry to burst any bubbles, but it's going to take millions of years. For those who think the golden age is just around the corner, there's a lot of work. The immensity of the darkness that is here on this planet is going to take a lot of life streams, an immense amount of fortitude to clean up. What Jesus did was an absolute drop in the bucket. But what he did was absolutely tremendous. Just think of that. A being of his caliber rarely gets expression on this planet. We do not have anything else in history at this moment that even compares to what he embodied. And no one will ever understand until they're ascended just how much work it took for an individual like him to free himself from the depravity, from the consciousness that enmeshes the entire psyche of everyone on this planet. How to convey this? I'm going to try to properly convey this. Just imagine this, because it's really dawning on my consciousness right now of just how celebrated, how revered Jesus is to the brotherhood of the light throughout entire creation. This is dawning on my consciousness right now. I am seeing this for the first time, and I'm going to convey it. Jesus is literally one of the greatest living examples throughout all of creation. And this is because he attained victory at near certain defeat. Just think about this for a second with me. This brother found victory on a planet that was slated for fucking destruction because of being nearly impossible. 99.99% chance none of us can ever find our way out of the fucking disaster we've made of consciousness. But he did it. He fucking found his way home at the very darkest moment of this planet. That victory is one of the greatest victories throughout all of creation. Just think about that. Just think of the implications of that. This is why Jesus is celebrated and revered beyond almost all others. Because not only did he achieve his own freedom, he fucking came back for our final embodiment and cleaned up enough of our fucking disaster here to save all of us from being just dissolved Because that's what life does to those who are completely enmeshed, to the individualized consciousnesses that are completely enmeshed with no escape, get fucking dissolved. It's just energy. It gets recycled. It doesn't even matter. Life goes on. The universe is not going to stop just because we fucked up or we fell asleep at the wheel. We are nothing. Yet life wastes no effort. No effort is wasted to salvage the individual, the fractal that made the decision to be a custodian of free will. No effort is spared to salvage all of us who made the effort or made the decision to serve creation as a custodian of free will. That is the magnitude of respect and honor that life bestows upon those individuals who choose to do that. Because as I said before, not all individuals throughout creation serve in this capacity. I hope you all realize how absolutely hard it is to talk about the magnitude of life and how it really can only be done while on psychedelics because of how they work. And this can only be done by a person who serves the light. It is a prerequisite. Only individuals who serve the light will ever see the reality of these things. It's not shown to those who are enmeshed. And that is no flaunting of an ego. It doesn't even exist. I am merely stating factual reality. All knowledge in life is frequency locked. I've said this before. Life does not cast its pearls before swine. That's an old, I think, biblical statement, right? Do not cast your pearls before swine. Life is the same way. We have to make ourselves worthy to understand the magnitude of what we are. And it takes an enormous fight on this planet to even make a fraction of gain on this front because the darkness that is still here. But we have a representation in Jesus and what he achieved. And I'm trying to convey that to everyone. Just the absolute magnitude of what he did and what he continues to do to help us. But people need to understand the reality of the situation. They need to know what is going on with blinders off of just how dire the situation is. Things are looking much more promising than being dissolved. That's for sure. Things are looking more promising. I think anybody who is about to be executed and had their fucking neck on the block of the guillotine, to have that pulled back, could say, yeah, things are looking better. It's the understatement of the year. So in essence, I'll wrap up this recording. The importance of understanding these things, especially when taking psychedelics, needs to be known, because taking psychedelics is very useful. It can be very healing. It is a vehicle of immense power. Psychedelics are immensely powerful. They can help correct many conditions that humanity faces and is dealing with. But it's also for the uninitiated. That's a good way to put it. For the uninitiated in the service of the light, and just what that entails and what that means for the uninitiated, psychedelics can be a lot more than they bargained for. Without a firm footing, without some basic skills in the serving of the light and what that means and what that's going to entail and the fights that are going to come your way, it can be more than a lot of people have bargained for. So knowing that one statement that I said earlier at the beginning of this video, when you're faced with the reality of the darkness that's working behind the scenes of humanity's consciousness, which in essence shows up as what people call a bad trip. To use those words, show me the motherfucking light. That will be like a sword. It will be a dagger to the heart of that destructive entity that tries to get a hold of people's psyche. So that should be remembered. But as I said before about how the darkness is so interwoven into the human consciousness, you cannot just rip it out because you will shatter someone's consciousness. It is so interwoven. Imagine a fabric of linen. You can't just pull on any part of it without affecting the whole piece of material. And that's the condition of the human psyche on this planet, is that the darkness and the falsehood, the unreality of things is so interwoven into the fabric of the human mind that they cannot even distinguish the difference. And the thing is, when a person uses psychedelics, it's almost like putting on a giant microscope, at least for those that are trained a little bit, or sorry, I lost my train of thought because my wife and daughter were just leaving, so I got kicked out of the car, my wife's car in which I was sitting making this recording. So I'll try to find myself way back to the train of thought here, but this has become a very long recording. But I hope people can appreciate just how delicate this subject is to even discuss. Because most of mankind isn't even at a point in their consciousness to even have conversations about this with. They are so enmeshed in the illusion of what they are, of the powers that are theirs. They are so enmeshed in just the status quo of life, of just live, just eat, breathe, raise a family, have some sex, do some taxes, have a career, have some fun, and then hopefully die peacefully. They're so enmeshed in that illusion that anything that broaches the subject of being any but different than that approach is just literally blasphemy to them. And that you are seen as an insane person or losing your mind. So it's very hard to talk about these things. But some minuscule amount of humanity will come and discover the truth of almost everything I said. It's not just me. So many people before us have said the same things. It's written on the records of this planet that are available for anyone to peruse when they have earned the right to do so. Everything that has happened on this planet is recorded. It's just like the water Water is like liquid tape. It records the vibration which is impinged upon it. Water that has purity, the vibration of purity put on it, will make beautiful snowflakes. And water that has been exposed to disastrous vibrations will never be able to form a snowflake when it freezes. It's a very interesting phenomena that is very important consideration for science. If they start wrapping their head around that, of how that is, of how the frequency of life can absolutely dissolve physical matter or transform it into something magnificent. All comes down to how that frequency is used. And all that comes down unto the wielder of free will, which we are. Life responds exactly to our consciousness. It's the greatest. The physical body is the outpicturing of our consciousness. It is how we know if we are doing things right or doing things wrong. The physical body is the vehicle for this classroom that tells us if we're doing things right or doing things wrong. Everybody wants to blame genetics, but they have to understand genetics is literally the outpicturing of previous karma. We cannot escape the misuse of things, even from previous lifetimes, my friends. The genetics that we embody today are an outpicturing of our previous karma. It is mathematical. There's nothing to blame but ourselves on every single level of our existence. There is no coincidence. There is no chance. Life is supremely mathematical. And as we re-embody, we literally have genetics that match to our frequency of life, to our karma. And at some point, we can escape all that. At some point, we can reach a deep enough realization of the truth of this that we can literally transform our entire physical form into perfection. Many individuals have come close to doing this. There's been many circumstances of yogis literally leaving their bodies consciously in what we would call the change called death. But they consciously terminate their existence in this life, and their bodies maintain a quality of near lifelike, perfection still, a very long time, because they have achieved a level of frequency embedded into the very flesh of their body that persists for a very long time against the oppressive frequency of this planet. But Jesus gave us the ultimate example of what happens when one uses the understanding and takes it to the point of graduation, to ascend, to take the physical form. Even when it has been hung on the cross and pierced in the side with a spear and laid to rest in the tomb, he maintained consciousness and perfected his body and walked it out of the tomb as a living example for the rest of mankind of what we are to do, of what we are capable of doing. And he did this on a planet that was slated for destruction because there was 99.99% chance anyone was going to be unable to do this. That is how preposterous his achievement is. And the fact of the matter is, the house cleaning he did for this planet, saving it from the chopping block, has given us all a chance to not be dissolved ourselves. Because there is no lower classroom to go to, my friends. This is it. There are higher classrooms we can go to, but this is the end. We redeem ourselves here, or you do not exist. It's as simple as that. And we owe it all to Jesus, or none of us would be here right now. Well, I'm quite sure I've rambled on enough today. This is like an 1.5 hour long recording. I hope anything in this message proves useful or inspiring to someone. I know we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff today, but sometimes things have to be put in perspective. If you want to see clearly, you have to look things straight in the face. If you want to conquer the darkness, you have to look it straight in the face when it presents itself. All my blessings upon you on your journey.